Good morning, guys. Good morning. I hope everyone is well today. Beautiful, beautiful day. What a day to start the 1st of May on. Promises to be a great month, hopefully. Everyone hear me okay? Sound good? Signal good? Connection good? Okay, welcome to day 4 of the Wildcrafted Wellness Week. Today is the last day of kind of the official syllabus, for want of a better word, but it's not actually because we decided to run a bonus session tomorrow because it's really important to me that we talk about herbal painkillers because it's such an integral part of the role of the herbal forager and medicine maker and the kind of village herbalist. So we're going to run that session tomorrow at 11 a.m. So it's going to be a bonus session. There's also going to be some a bonus session and some extra content next week, just to allow us to cover some bits we haven't covered. But today, something that is, absolutely of fundamental importance to me and my work and everything that I try to do through my work, which is about preventing these kinds of diseases. Yesterday, we looked at heart disease and we looked at hawthorn, um, one of the most important herbs, and today looking at cancer and Alzheimer's. And for me, this is such a passion project. This is something that is just has to be shouted from the rooftops by as many people as passionately as possible, because this something has to change. Ultimately, the prevalence of cancer and Alzheimer's is increasing year on year. But what's scary is that it's affecting more people at a younger age who are otherwise healthy. It's going the wrong way. But one of the things that I wanted to, one of the biggest things to emphasize is that we are not sitting ducks. Our ability to best case, prevent these illnesses, or worst case, significantly delay their development is profound. And I mean overwhelmingly profound. And we can see that by looking at public health data. If we look at certain communities around the world, particularly in the Mediterranean basin, they're not different to us. They're not a different type of species or a different genus of humans. They're humans. And in those communities, the prevalence of these diseases are less than 20%, in some cases less than 10%. In some areas of Greece, they're less than 5%. And yet in Britain, they're averaging around 73%, over 2/3 of people. So that's down to how we're living. And herbal medicines, a huge part of my work, when I was working at the hospital and in research, was looking at this. What's the evidence of herbs to support health and specifically suppress the mechanisms that allow diseases like cancer and Alzheimer's to develop and progress? And the evidence is so overwhelming. And today, I want to talk about a herb that is just so effective in this capacity. And some experts, based upon the research, label it as the most powerful preventative herb. And it's gonna well, so actually someone guessed it right on the Facebook page. You're going to be greatly surprised probably at what this herb is, because it's everywhere and it's often classified as a weed. Any guesses, let me know. But before I get onto that, I just want to briefly mention something, because we've been, as we always are, in these 3 weeks, inundated with messages, particularly the last 24 hours, around what next? If this is ending, how do we take the journey further? How do we continue the journey into foraging and medicine making and village herbalism? And on that note, I'm, super excited to introduce our Wild Medicine Mastery course. It's something that is another passion project for me. All the way through this week, we've contextualized foraging around 3 objectives. Why forage? What problem does it solve? It allows us to transform our health, optimize our health and our energy and our youthfulness. It helps us maximize our disease prevention capacity and optimize our longevity profile. And it allows us to be empowered as that village herbalist to treat common household ailments. When someone falls sick, treating them effectively. This course, the Wild Medicine Mastery course, is my best answer to how we empower as many people to be able to do that in an evidence-based, safe, confident, and competent way. that will allow, that will empower and educate as many people to become effective herbal foragers and medicine makers. It's I can't I you know, it's been a long time in the design and the development, and it's my answer for how we take this week and we blow it up into a huge and much bigger and more effective platform. So just quickly going to whiz through it before we dive into the actual session today. So the Wild Medicine Mastery course is essentially a one-stop shop that literally puts into one place everything that I think you'll ever need to know to become a master herbal forager and medicine maker. It's got a dedicated web platform with a colossal volume of information in terms of uh, all the primary herbs that you will forage through the foraging calendar, how to find them, how to identify them, their medicinal properties, their folklore, their history, remedies for how to use them. There's video tutorials on how to make the primary prescribing modalities, how to make tinctures and ointments and poultices and compresses and herbal honey and herbal baths and on and on and on. There's extensive information on how to manage the A to Z, really, of common household ailments, so that when someone in your household or a friend or a neighbor gets sick, you can play that village, you can fulfill that village herbalist model. And there's also loads of additional stuff in there that I won't go through. When you, if you join on the other side, there's just so much more. That resource alone will give you, that on-demand platform will give you everything you need to become a master forager and medicine maker. But we've added another level to it, which is bonus live interactive support. So aside from that dedicated web platform, what we're going to do is go through a journey across the foraging year from the 1st of May to the end of October, early November. And we're going to live the Foragers Path. So every month we're going to have a lot extended Zoom webinar, which is essentially like this, obviously smaller, more intimate. And every month we're going to look at what we should be doing this month, what herbs are in season, why are they so amazing, what's their benefits to being used, what roles do they fulfill, what remedies and medicines and tonics we should be making. It allows for Q&As, it allows for interaction and support, which is really important because it's going to keep us, it's going to allow us to walk through this foraging year, which is a beautiful thing to do. And by following along with that, you know, by the end of the year, come October, November, you're literally going to have an overflowing apothecary of remedies, which is phenomenal. The two things I'm most excited to share with everyone who joins me is the Forager's Kitchen. So this is going to be moving away from just herbal medicine to looking at culinary herbalism. And every month we'll be sharing loads of meals, so meals and snacks and energy balls and teas, and you know, taking the wild herbs and planting them into the kitchen as culinary herbalism. And that ties in with my secret remedy books. You'll remember from I spoke about on Monday the fact that we took this 5-month tour around Europe in a camper van to explore these different healing traditions. And you know, I've got notebooks of these amazing secret remedies that I haven't seen anywhere else. And we're going to share those for the first time on this platform. We've got information on how to craft a herbal first aid kit, so you don't need to rely so much on over-the-counter treatments. There's a dedicated, for those of you who are on Facebook, there's a dedicated Facebook support group. Obviously much smaller than this one that comes with this week, because it's going to be more intimate, where you can connect with me and Holly and all the other people taking part. You can, you know, we can inspire and engage and motivate. So this to me is my solution for how do we create a movement in our villages and communities and countries where we can reinitiate the village herbalist by creating really competent, powerful foragers. And this is a way of providing all the information along with the support and live interaction. And I'm so excited about it. I can't wait to kick off. The first live webinar is actually week today, or week Wednesday, the 7th of May. So that's going to talk about everything that's going to happen in May, all of the remedies, the recipes, the meals, the herbs, everything. So this is a huge project for me. It's something I'm super excited about. And I'd love to, you know, if you've enjoyed this week, it's essentially a much bigger, better, more robust version. So I'd love to take your energy and inspiration into that. In terms of the cost, so the doors are open for 1 week. So the doors are open until 10 p.m. next Thursday to make sure everyone is in place. So you get lifetime content to everything. You never lose access. All of the live content, all of the pre-recorded content, you get lifetime access. So there's a one-off payment of £145, or you can pay in installments, 3 installments of £49. Which like I say, will give you everything there for life. So if you feel inspired by this week and you want to continue your journey, I'd love to welcome you into that platform and into that course and into the Facebook group, and get to know you more over this foraging calendar, which is going to be an amazing journey. So so do check it out. It's up on the homepage of the website. I'll send you a link in an email once we finish today. Which, having discussed that, because I know we've had so many questions about it, I now want to move on to today's the most important thing, which is the actual content. So, antidoting these trilogy of killers. Yesterday we spoke about heart disease and hawthorn. Today I want to talk, like I said, about cancer and Alzheimer's, and to put into context how powerful our ability to impact upon our risks. So the current consensus is that between 60 and 75% of all cancers and all Alzheimer's are preventable through dietary, lifestyle, and herbal interventions. That is an earth-shattering statistic, up to 75%. And we must be unleashing these benefits in our own lives and in the lives of the people we love and care for. And there's lots of things that facilitate that, like there are for all diseases: diet and stress and sleep and exercise and proper circadian alignment, all of these things. But herbal medicines are unique because they're targeted, they're concentrated, they're very quick and easy to use. And I've studied, one of my old mentors at the hospital, Professor George Lewis. He was really interested in this. And we've looked at the public health data in areas with very low levels of cancer and very low levels of Alzheimer's. We've looked at, the research around their practices. And what we see is, one, that the daily or regular, usually daily use of herbal medicines are a foundation of their disease preventing pathways. But more uniquely, a herb shot into the limelight that was perhaps the most predictive, evidentially, of its ability to actually evidentially suppress disease pathways relevant to cancer and Alzheimer's. Any ideas what that herb is? I'm intrigued to see what your best guesses might be. Tamara, dandelion, plantain, dandelion. No, this course is different to the home herbalist course. It's very different, Emma. It complements the home herbalist course brilliantly, but it's obviously got all of the live sessions and the foraging sessions. Right. Yeah, so good. So just quickly, so everyone who's asked that you've got the Master Home Herbalist course, there's some overlap, but obviously loads of difference as well, because this is about the foraging mechanisms and the going through the foraging calendar. Right, so lots of right answers. What's the answer? Dandelions. So in Greece, where they have the most developed framework of using dandelion, okay, there's something called nostikoi or nostikoi, which means the wise ones. These are not these are not the kind of the clinical herbalists working with stethoscopes in clinics. These are the traditional healers, the herbalists, in rural communities, the village herbalists, what we all are trying to be here, are called the wise ones. And they, in the Greek islands and in lots of the Balkan states, they view and revere dandelion as their primary preventative medicine, and they're called horta, Horta, which means wild greens. And in the hands of these wise ones, these healers and herbalists, these hortas, these wild greens, particularly dandelion, were transformed into this phenomenal medicine. And In Crete in particular, so in the White Mountains of Crete, in running across the spine of the central line of Crete, they have some of the lowest levels of cancer and some of the lowest levels of Alzheimer's. And they have this beautiful framework and an eclectic array of different remedies and tonics for using dandelion specifically as a preventative for serious diseases like cancer and like Alzheimer's. And that makes sense because their longevity profiles are so exceptional. And I want to share, it was a toss up between two recipes. One was a fermented dandelion, kind of like sauerkraut herbal ferment. And the other one was something called an oxymel. And I wasn't sure which one to talk about. I'm going to talk about the oxymel because it's probably easier to make. But all of these secret remedies, including the sauerkraut and dozens of other, they are all uploaded in the Wild Medicine Mastery course, so you can find those there. But before I talk about the remedy, I want to talk about why. What's the evidence? So I know there's some quite heavily scientific words here, but look at that statement on the left, taking into account cost, availability, ease of use, and clinical evidence. There is probably no more simple and powerful cancer preventing herb on the planet than dandelion. That was an evidence synthesis um, around the evidence-based links of herbal medicines and their ability to suppress cancer pathways. That's a hugely telling statement from a medical study. Why is it so powerful? Why is dandelion such a fundamental natural herb in the context of trying to maximize our cancer preventing abilities? So I want to quickly whiz through. There's four main pathways. I want to start with probably the most important one, which is the one with the arrow under it, which is carcinogenic removal and detoxification. So one of the leading causes of cancer is the intake of carcinogens, a lot of which we have no control over. Lots of them coming to our body through the air that we breathe, that we can't control when we're out and about. They come in through our skin. Every time you get into a car and you touch a seat belt or you touch the seat in the car, you're absorbing fire retardant. In our water, in our food, in our cleaning products, we are bombarded with a daily onslaught of toxins. And those toxins are largely carcinogenic. The more they build up over weeks, months, years, decades, the increased risks of cancerous development. The more effectively we can shed those carcinogens, remove them from the body, the lower the risk. And alongside milk thistle, dandelion is the most effective herb, not just for liver function and detoxification, but for specifically isolating and removing carcinogenic toxins. So if you are going through life and you're regularly consuming dandelions, what it means is you're aiming to maintain equilibrium. Carcinogen toxin intake is being matched by carcinogenic toxin removal. And dandelions excel at that. And I personally, the reason I put a triple asterisk on that one is, to my mind, looking at the evidence, that's probably why the daily or at least weekly use of dandelions is probably so linked to lower risks of cancer, because it's helping to clear this stuff out. The other mechanism that's really important is something called the surveillance. Well, it's not a theory anymore, it's accepted. So the surveillance theory is now a proven concept, which is that once we're over the age of about 20, every adult will typically develop cancerous cells 3 times a year. That's now a clinical fact. I could have cancerous cells in my body right now. We've got 50, 60 trillion cells. The chance of some of those regularly going wrong is very high. But for most people, for most of the time, for most of their life, their body's able to identify those very early cancerous cells and destroy them before they can develop into a fully fledged cancer. That process uses something called apoptosis, which is cell suicide. And the more effective that process comes, then it means we develop a handful of cancerous cells, we destroy them. We develop a handful of cancerous cells, we destroy them. We can do that year on year. We maximize the chance of getting to 80, 90, 100 in the absence of cancer. If you develop cancer at 60, you've had 50, 40 years as an adult. destroying cancer. So we know we can do it. And herbs like dandelion are clinically proven in their ability to help the body identify and destroy early cancerous cells. So when it's just developing. So it's the ability to identify and stop this before it becomes a symptomatic illness. And that's fundamental. The other thing it does is that it disrupts cell cycle behavior. So if you get these early cancerous cells, the quicker they divide, the greater the risk of that, overwhelming the immune system and developing cancer. Dandelions, again, are being proven to disrupt that cell cycle arrest. So rather than one cancer cell becoming 2, becoming 4, becoming 8, becoming 16, is able to slow down, stop, and even sever that cell cycle. So if you combine lower levels of carcinogens with increased cell death alongside slower cell replication, then our ability to reduce our risk of cancer is exponentially stronger. The fourth pathway is that we know the regular use of dandelions is able to specifically suppress inflammatory pathways that are essential for cancer development, progression, and spread. So all four of those are individually important, fundamental, particularly that the detoxification one. But combined, you get this incredibly powerful framework. And I think if you look at that research through the lens of the evidence, suddenly you can see why the regular use of herbs like dandelion are so indicated in our lives and so beneficial. So all of that to say, the evidence around why this herb is so important is based upon this. So that's the cancer side. And next up, we look at the anti-Alzheimer's side. So then another statement, the ability of plant-based compounds, such as those found in high concentrations in dandelions, to prevent, delay, and slow down the development and progression of Alzheimer's disease is overwhelmingly strong and needs to inform a new frontier of disease prevention and treatment research. Wow, that's about dandelions, not a pharmaceutical drug, dandelions. And we see the same thing. We see these individual mechanisms by which dandelion can help facilitate that anti-Alzheimer's pathway. And this is really key because Alzheimer's, it's predicted that by 2030, Alzheimer's will overtake heart disease as the leading cause of death. And it's moving downwards in terms of age. Early onset Alzheimer's is one of the fastest growing cohorts. So we need to be doing things, daily, weekly, that help to minimize that risk. How does dandelion do it? So again, very clear mechanisms. I think perhaps the most interesting one is the bottom left. So I don't want to go into super heavy science. So some of you may have heard of the mitochondria. The mitochondria are the power stations of our cells. They're what creates cellular energy. When we have things like dementia, Alzheimer's, age-related memory loss, that the mitochondria in our brain cells deteriorate rapidly, and our memory and our concentration and our recall diminishes with it. What some of the compounds in dandelion have been proven to do is preserve the health of the mitochondria, specifically in brain cells. And that is clinically linked to better memory, reduced risks of dementia and Alzheimer's. So that's key. The second thing, hang on, why can't I move that? Sorry, guys, I'm just moving the screen here. The second thing it does is amyloid plaque formation. So amyloid plaque is actually kind of the main structural change in the brain that promotes Alzheimer's. That's what you can see on a brain scan. So there are lots of things, anything that helps to reduce the formation of amyloid plaque is one of the most powerful tools we have for treating, preventing, managing Alzheimer's. So green tea, extra virgin olive oil, nettles, actually, which we discussed obviously on Monday, but dandelion, the bitter, super bitter compounds in dandelion have been shown to make it much harder for amyloid to actually stick to the brain. So it prevents the actual structural formation of it, which is essential. It reduces inflammation specifically in the brain. And we know that the higher our levels of simmering chronic inflammation in the brain, it's one of the biggest risk factors for things like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia. So the regular intake of dandelion helps to reduce that neuroinflammation. And the new wave of research, this is where we're at the moment, is something called choline or choline. So choline is a neurochemical that memories move along. So imagine you're about to go out and you say, "Where are my car keys?" And you can't remember where they are. It's because the memory of where they are can't jump across the synaptic gaps. It can't flow along your memory pathways, because the only way it can move is on the back of choline. So you can think of choline as carrying your memories. And if you've got lots of choline, you can carry the memories until you're able to think, "Oh, I know where my car keys are. They're on the shelf." But as choline levels drop, you have less ability to carry the memory, so you forget things. And it's one of the biggest consistencies in people with Alzheimer's and dementia. They have very low levels of choline. Lots of the pharmaceutical treatments for Alzheimer's are about increasing choline levels. But what dandelion does, particularly when it's paired with rosemary, because rosemary crosses, oh, actually, I'll talk about rosemary in a minute. When rosemary and dandelion are combined, dandelion has a compound that supports increased availability of choline, and rosemary actually carries it into the brain, because rosemary is one of the few herbs that's able to cross the blood-brain barrier and actually get into the brain. So each one of those mechanisms is really important, but again, you combine them, and what you've got is this hugely complex framework for how dandelions can support brain health and memory and concentration as we age. So to not be making use of this, particularly because it's it's a weed in most people's minds. It's everywhere. We haven't got to buy it. We haven't got to spend money on it. It's there. So the evidence around why we need to be making use of this is overwhelming, without exception. And it's incredibly, it's an incredibly exciting time for research around around cancer prevention and Alzheimer's prevention and heart disease prevention using herbs. There are so many ways of unleashing these benefits, in terms of culinary form, in terms of meals, in terms of sauerkrauts, and like I say, most of those or all of those are shared in the Wild Mastery, the Wild Medicine Mastery course. So do check those out. But my favorite way, like I said, it's either the fermented sauerkraut, but my overall favorite way of using it is the dandelion longevity oxymel, which comes from Crete, and it's one of the secret remedies. And it's one that I would implore everyone here to make and use, because it's probably the most effective way of specifically unleashing not just the general benefits of dandelion, but the specific anti-cancer, anti-Alzheimer benefits. So what is an oxymel? An oxymel is an incredibly effective way. Essentially, the reason it's used is a way of maximizing the availability of the healing compounds found within the herbs in it. So when we looked at the nettle vinegar, which is brilliant, the vinegar extracts the healing compounds. But what an oxymel is a mix of raw honey and vinegar. And that's key, because when you put herbs in honey, you're able to extract healing compounds from the herbs that you can't extract any other way. When you add herbs into vinegar, you're able to extract herbal compounds that can't be extracted any other way. When you combine herbs in honey and vinegar, you are able to extract around 90% of the entire healing properties found within those herbs. It's one of the most effective ways of increasing the bioavailability of the herbs we use. And it's also a brilliant preserver. So raw honey and the apple cider vinegar are, when we look at how we make this, it has a shelf life of about, or comfortably 12 months in a cupboard. So if you make a liter bottle of this and you put it with an airtight lid in your growing home apothecary, you can use that for a year. And we only need a couple of teaspoons every other day, or whatever, 3-4 times a week. So it's super. Once you've made it, it's there to use long term. And it is, having been, really involved in the dandelion research, it's a real interest of mine and has been for many, many, many years. I can genuinely say I haven't seen a better remedy for mobilizing and unleashing the benefits of dandelion than this recipe. One, because of the fact that it's got different extracting mechanisms, but two, it's the other herbs that are included within it. And every remedy we've looked at this week, we've looked at herbal alchemy and herbal synergy, combining herbs to get an exponential benefit. Herb 1 plus herb 2 plus herb 3 doesn't equal 3, it equals 10. And this is so true with this oxymol. Because the reason I think this is my favorite remedy is because the proof's in the pudding. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. What we need to look at is in the areas where people are living an exceptionally long time with very low levels of cancer and very low levels of heart disease, how are they using dandelion? Because the proof of the pudding's in the eating. They're doing it, and that's how they're getting the benefit. And this is what they're using. This is how they use it, and it works. Yes, we've got the clinical evidence and the laboratory evidence to show it works, but this is how practically on the ground it's being used. And the most important addition to this oxymol is the addition of rosemary. And it's pretty essential actually, because like I say, rosemary is one of the few herbs. The problem with managing anything in the brain is that there are loads of things that can help that. The problem is actually getting it into the brain, because the brain is surrounded by a barrier called the blood-brain barrier, which essentially filters and tests everything coming into the brain to make sure it's safe to enter. And if it's not, it stops it getting in. So you could have a really powerful medicine, but if the blood-brain barrier stops it, it can't get into the brain and it can't work. And lots of the pharmaceutical treatments have looked at rosemary, because rosemary contains natural compounds and acids that are, proven to cross the blood-brain barrier. So what that gives you is the brain and anti-cancer benefits of dandelion in a way that can actually be used, not just in the brain, but around the body. And because it's an oxymol, because it's got raw honey, because it's got apple cider vinegar, because it's got all the probiotic compounds, it's a very powerful immune modulator. It supports the gut health. It supports the microbiome in the gut. It supports better immune function. It supports better hormone regulation. It increases serotonin and dopamine production in the gut. It just goes on and on. It's hard to encounter a remedy that includes this variety of mechanisms. And it's super easy to make. So all you need is some dandelion leaves and flowers. The flowers are really, they contain a different combination of compounds. So ideally, leaves and flowers. If you've got dandelions in your garden, try and dig up the roots, particularly the big tap root, because they contain different compounds again. So if you can be bothered, and if they're in your garden, you're going out and just digging up the whole plant, the leaves, the flowers, and the roots, then so much the better. But if you can't be bothered or it's too much effort, you can just use the leaves and the flowers. You need apple cider vinegar, you need raw honey, you need the more additional Mediterranean herbs you can add in. So classically, the Cretan remedy uses rosemary, thyme, and oregano. The most important one is rosemary, because we just spoke about that, but thyme and oregano come with loads of their own benefits. A few slices of lemon and 1 to 2 garlic cloves if you want them. You haven't got to put those in. I don't put them into my one because I don't like raw garlic or the taste of it, but typically it is used quite a lot. Garlic obviously comes with just an insane amount of health benefits. And it's literally a case of layering those into a clean, dry jar, pouring over equal parts raw apple cider vinegar and raw honey, giving it a really, really good mix, and letting it macerate for 3 to 4 weeks. You can use it after 48 hours, and then once it's 3, 4 weeks have passed, or 2 weeks, or however long you want to leave it, you just strain it out. And what you're left with is this: if you analyze the oxymol, once it's ready, and you take a teaspoon of that and you take it to the lab and you analyze it, what you see is a virtually identical footprint to the dandelions used in it, and the rosemary and the thyme and the oregano. It's extracted virtually 100% of the healing compounds. And it's, you know, not just in terms of cancer and Alzheimer's, but general health. That is clinically indicated for respiratory health, immunological health. You could use that as a treatment for cold and flus, as a prevention for cold and flus. It's great for heart health. It's hard to engineer a remedy that is as all pervading as this. It is exceptional. And you know, I feel so privileged to have access to it, and this is why these secret remedies are so kind of powerful. The other thing that I'll often do is that we get turmeric juice. So Fushi make this beautiful turmeric juice, you know, like a bottle of, and it's not that expensive actually. And I would typically add about 1 to 2 teaspoons of this oxymel into the turmeric juice and have that as a shot in the morning with breakfast. I don't have it every day, but maybe, you know, every other day, or at least 3 or 4 times a week. And the turmeric obviously gives you all of those additional anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer benefits. Turmeric is the most famous anti-cancer herb in the world, and it blends really well. The sweetness of the honey complements the vinegary taste, and the turmeric, it really lifts it. It's really pleasant actually. You know, that's a way of using it. Again, you can get that from Fushi. If you can, you can use, negotiated that 15% discount. So if you do want to get some, make sure you take advantage of that. So the full recipe for that oxymel and the supporting video, as always, this week will be uploaded to the resources page. But this one I would put as a priority to make, because I think it's the most important one we've covered so far. The other thing is as all the herbs we've covered this week, if you're going to go out and make the effort to forage these herbs, also forage some more to dry them. If you've got a jar of dried dandelion leaves and flowers and stems and roots, or a combination of, it means you can use them easily. You can just take out a teaspoon and make a cup of tea. You can make the oxymel using dried ingredients, exactly the same recipe using dried. So if it's the depths of winter and you run out and you want to make some more, if you've got jars of dried dandelion, you can make it whenever you want. So one of the things I always advocate is, whenever we're foraging, use them fresh, but always try and dry some. And the instructions for that again will be uploaded. So your next task is to, and this one I would put to the top of everything we've covered so far, is integrate dandelions into your life somehow, whether that's teas, whether it's ideally in this oxymel. If you decide to join me in the Wild Medicine Mastery course, make the dandelion fermented sauerkraut, because it's a taste sensation. Teas, you can use it as salad leaves. There's loads of ways of using it, but just try to adopt and integrate it into your life, because if this plays the long game, it's not about using it intensely for a week and that's it. We want to follow the Greek model, using it several times a week for most of our lives, because if we do that, the evidence suggests it can make a significant impact upon our, you know, cancer and Alzheimer's risk factors. Tomorrow, bonus session. I know the sessions were meant to run till today, but tomorrow we're going to have another session where we're going to look at herbal painkillers, because if we are trying to move into that herbal, village herbalist foraging model, this is something we have to know how to do. Herbal painkillers are the most used and overused medicines in the world. They come with side effects. We're using them too much at too high a dose. And really easy to find is a medicine that is clinically proven as a painkiller, because it contains the same compounds as aspirin. It's where aspirin was made from. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow. So again, have 270 people here today. I'm just so grateful for all of your time and all of the love and interaction on the Facebook group. So many posts and messages and comments. So it means the world to me. So a very sincere thank you. Like I say, for those who'd like to continue the journey, I'd love to welcome you into the Wild Medicine Mastery course. But if not, I'll be back live at 11 a.m. tomorrow. So see you soon. Enjoy the sun. I think it's the hottest day of the year so far. So have a good one, and I'll see you soon. Cheers, guys.